In my book, The Case Against Reality, I'm proposing that the first step is to understand that space-time, from the consciousness point of view, space-time is just a headset. Some reality outside of space-time, and it's being filtered through a headset. So if that's the case, then there are certain things that we should expect. We should expect that objects don't exist when they're not perceived. And the reason for that is the following. Suppose that you're playing a virtual reality game like Grand Theft Auto, and you see in front of you a red Mustang that you're chasing, for example. There is no red Mustang in the supercomputer that's running the game, right? If you look inside, there's diodes and resistors and voltages and so forth. There's no red Mustang in there at all. So where is that red Mustang? Where does it exist? I certainly see it. So I'm looking, I see a red Mustang. If I turn my headset that way, I no longer see it. And that's because I'm no longer rendering it. Pixels on my screen are no longer rendering something that I see as a Mustang, a red Mustang in front of. So, but you can say, but every time you look back, you'll see it. Absolutely. Every time you look back, you'll see it. And the other players, if it's a multiplayer game, they'll all say, well, Don, look away from the red Mustang. I look away, and I can still see it, Don. So that proves that the red Mustang is really there. No, it just means that you're rendering it in your headset when I'm not rendering it in mine. So the first metaphor I propose in my book basically is to say you're having a hard time imagining what it could possibly mean that space-time isn't fundamental. Here's the metaphor that will really help you. Think of it as a VR headset. Everything that you're seeing is a VR headset, and all the reasons that you might give for why it couldn't possibly be the case that I'm creating everything I see, just take it into a VR context and ask your question there, and you'll realize that all the things that you think are drop-dead proofs that you're seeing reality as it is just are not. So that's the real simple thing. So that's one of the big things I do in my book, is to just really help people to grasp with the virtual reality metaphor how it could be that I'm not looking at the moon, you see the moon, and yet the moon doesn't exist, it's not perceived, right? So that really bothered Einstein. Einstein said, "Do you really believe the moon doesn't exist when when it's not perceived?" And most of us think that's a drop-dead, stopping question for this whole approach. And the idea then is just simple. I render my moon when I look, and you render your moon when you look. And whatever reality is, it's not a moon. That's just your headset representation. Just like there's no red Mustang in the supercomputer. You render the red Mustang when you see it, and you don't render it when you don't. So that's the first step. It's a baby step, but it's the first step. I'm not yet talking about a scientific theory. I'm just trying to take the first baby step to get over the idea that this is impossible. You have to be nuts to even think this way. So we have to get over that hurdle before we can actually get into, here's how you build a scientific theory.
What did we do before there was Grand Theft Auto to use as a metaphor for reality? I'm thinking of all of the years before we had virtual reality, before we even had, this kind of video game world that was constructed. There's no better metaphor. And we had Dr. Rizwan Virk on, and, he basically said, this is a simulation, right? If you look at all of it like a simulation, that is the perfect metaphor. But it's so interesting, the millennia that it took, right, for us to get to this moment when we can actually use an example that people can grab onto to present some of the most sophisticated ideas in modern science. So I first wanted to give a shout out to virtual reality.
Right. Well, it's a good question. Plato was trying to grapple with this very idea, and he used the best metaphor he had at the time, which was not VR, of course. It was, he had his allegory of the cave.
That's right.
And the idea was that what we're seeing is just shadows of objects cast, so there's a fire going on, and there's objects behind the fire, and they're casting their shadows on the wall, and that's what you see are the shadows of objects. So we're not seeing reality, we're seeing the shadows of reality.
I've heard some people tell the allegory of the cave tale with the people being chained inside the cave.
Right.
They are chained to the reality of the cave, and all they see is their perception and their interpretation of shadows on the wall. However, what I would hold is that people like you, Donald Hoffman, are saying we can release those chains, and we can step outside of that cave now, and we can peer at the things that Plato only suggested that we could entertain. And for me, that's the largest revolution in science that we're able to experience right now as humans.
That's right. So we can unchain ourselves. And now, spiritual traditions have said that over millennia. They've said, well, you can unchain yourself with meditation and rituals and so for prayer and things like that, and and that's good. And now I think we'll find in science we'll find new ways to unchain ourselves, like theoretically, to say we can actually go outside of space time with mathematics and theories that make predictions and make new technologies, so that we actually no longer are hand waving about it. We're saying, this new technology is because something is beyond space time.
Which is the reason Thomas Campbell says he does not have any interest in psychedelic drugs. He's like, the greatest drug is the understanding that we have, even when completely sober, of both the limits and the expansiveness of our perception and our reality.